Man. You know, the great part about doing renovations yourself is that nowhere in the floor plan does it mention a gaping abyss. Just happen to leave that one out. Though I do suppose that is a risk you run when renting from the Maplestories. Hey, speaking of traumatizing events, you want to hear what's actually tragic? It's the fact that Timmy Two-Shits over there from gym class thought he could ruin an objectively great game for an entire generation of kids. Yeah, that's right. I'm calling you out, you little shit. Everyone knows a Timmy. Maybe yours was a Kyle or a Brandon, maybe a Garrett, depending on how far south you are. In either case, he's that douchebag from middle school who decided to give yoga lessons to all the nerdy kids by stuffing them in lockers. Go back! Well, guess what, buddy? Looks like the joke's on you. Who's good at yoga now, bitch? The only downward dog you're seeing these days is on the roller grill at 7-Eleven. How's that for vicious boxing? See, when I was growing up, Dungeons and Dragons, or fantasy as a whole for that matter, was a bit of a hot topic. And I don't mean the corporate goss for America kind, I mean controversial. You see, Timmy Two-Shits aside, on one end of the spectrum, you had teachers and priests labeling it as Satan's Declassified World Domination Guide. Which I guess technically it could be, depending on what type of campaign you're running. But in most cases, no, not even close. D&D is a space for everyone. It's one of the most inclusive environments a person could immerse themselves into. Hell, even Timmy Two-Shits over there could live out his long-awaited fantasy of being Tom Brady's disciple in D&D.
Brothers, friends, my fellow Buccaneers, as guardians of the Bay, I beckon thee, stand by my side and defend what is rightfully ours. In the passing of words of the great Sir Brady of Tom. Blue of the 42nd, set your...
I did it for me. I liked it.
Apart from being an open environment, D&D fosters and rewards creativity in a way unlike anything I've ever experienced. And to prove that, I have with me today a little piece of evidence. Printing paper. Or, more accurately, an assembly of printing paper labeled as the Autobiography of Otto Belview. This, my friends, is a physical example of that creativity at work. And honestly, one of my most cherished campaign memories of all time. A few years back, some close friends and I decided to play through the Curse of Strahd campaign. And throughout it are laced a plethora of characters that the party could interact with or never even engage. An example of the latter being Otto Belview. It began with the party's arrival at the Abbey of St. Markovia, a monastery overlooking the town of Crest. But one does not simply waltz into the Abbey of St. Markovia. For guarding this place is this beautiful bastard. Our group's initial encounter with Otto was more or less unpleasant, with a near unanimous decision to leave the guy in the dust. But one among us, almost as infatuated with the beast as the beast was himself. Theocritus, played by this handsome lad over here, managed to tempt the beast by making him an offer he couldn't refuse. The opportunity to join us and write his own story. Initially, Otto was off-put by the idea, but by rolling a nat 20, I mean through his sheer wit and charisma alone, Theo managed to convince the beast to tag along. But on one condition. He would require a squire to write in his stead. Upon which he elected Alvin, the gnome in our party, to do just that. But there's just this one teeny tiny issue, and this is where it gets fun. He didn't do any of this. In fact, it was the party, through their quick thinking and extraordinary teamwork, that did this. He just had Alvin rewrite it all afterwards as though they were his sole actions. I'll give you a little taste. On our journey, we came upon a pack of wild direwolves chasing a rabbit. We all agreed to wait it out and not stir any trouble with the beast. That is, till Otto turned to me, a smug smirk upon his face, and exhaled, and yes, he actually sounded like this, it was awful.
Squire, write down in my autobiography that I dispersed the wolves and saved the party.
And that's the lightest interpretation in here. I mean, there are accounts of him scaling towers in the freezing cold to acquire knowledge to defeat vampires, fending off giant gargoyles single-handedly with nothing but a spade, vanquishing snow maidens and monstrous vultures with a pig sprung from a magical pouch. I mean, the list goes on and on. That is, until the final chapter. There came a point where a group had been traversing a snow-covered mountain for several days, under the guise of a blizzard as though to not be seen. Until, suddenly, moving swiftly out from behind a crag, something caught the party off guard. And for one unsuspecting member of our group, that meant getting launched off a mountain into the snowy vale below. This motherfucker got knocked off a mountain by a 9-foot goat named Sangzor. A goat. After everything in here, that was his end.
Snake, are you okay? Snake? Snake!
Or so they thought. One of the potential objectives in the Curse of Strahd is to locate a master monster hunter by the name of Von Richten. And Von Richten is a character that the party could run into several times over the course of the campaign without ever knowing it, because he has a hat of disguise.
I can't let you get close.
The very person they've been looking for was right under their noses, taking notes and documenting how they function as a party and plotting out ways to improve their tactics in order to face Strahd. And he just got bucked off a mountain by a 9-foot goat named Sangzor. Bit of a yikes. Now fast forward a few months, and we come to our party's first attempt to face Strahd, which was admittedly disastrous. Over the course of the night, our crackshot team of adventurers had managed to rig one of the castle chambers to collapse in on itself. The plan was to lure Strahd into this room, collapse the walls on top of him, and expose him to the morning sunlight such that they could drive a stake through his heart. There was just one problem. Unfortunately, Strahd's abilities far exceeded their expectations, and they were nearly TPK'd, or Team Party killed for those of you unaware. Alas, in their final moments, proving himself useful for once in his godforsaken life. With the element of surprise weighing in at 295 pounds from the top belt, the rusted spade of Otto Belview kissed Strahd right on his chiseled cheek, testing the fortitude of aged steel. But as their collision met, the spell began to quickly fade, revealing Otto to, in fact, be Von Richten. He motioned for the party to flee, a command Theo struggled to accept. But as he came to his senses, the chamber slowly collapsed in around him, burying both Strahd and Von Richten under the rubble. Later that year, after returning to defeat Strahd, the party uncovered Von Richten's remains beneath the rubble, his journal detailed with notes and strategies buried amongst them. His resting place finally met. Our party enjoyed this character to such an extent that at the end of every session, they would transcribe what Otto requested of them into this physical copy of the autobiography. Artwork provided by that handsome lad from earlier. It is certainly something. But this is something I will continue to cherish for years to come. I don't think there's any higher form of joy and warmth the DM can experience than that. Even today, we still pull this out and look through it and laugh about all the ridiculous tales and stories and circumstances that were manipulated and twisted by this selfish little bastard. There's even a barcode at the very bottom in a quote, a lovely one at that. It says, and all of this, very well could have never happened if that little shit succeeded in dissuading me from playing D&D in the first place. In the end, I'm incredibly thankful that D&D is as widely embraced and accepted as it is now, because it would have been a damn shame to let the insecure deflections of others deny such a wonderful and pleasant experience. A little light in this often cold, dark world, as it were, especially if you're Otto Belview. Speaking of cold and dark, you didn't happen to drop down my backpack when you collapsed half the floor, did ya? Of course not. That would have been way too convenient. Well, only one way out of this.